correspondent Michelle Cooper there. Let's have a look now at some of the other stories making headlines around the world. Major power outage has left millions without electricity in Chile. Blackout forced the evacuation of Santiago Metro, and it affected operations at multiple copper mines. Authorities have given no reason for the failure, which hit regions from the north to the south of the country. Pope Francis remains in a critical list.
Day of February in the year 2025. My name is Christopher Jones, welcoming you to another edition of Lash. On tonight's program, we will be looking in depth into the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport and the minister who has that responsibility. Tonight on the program will be joining me, special advisor to the former Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Randolph Critchlow, and of course, special assignment in the Department of Social Cohesion, Ms. Natasha Singh Fordyce. A pleasant good evening. Welcome to the program, Natasha.
Hi, Chris. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me on your program, The Whiplash.
Most welcome. And of course, it's a pleasure having you on the show. And of course, Randolph Critchlow will be joining us in just a few minutes. And of course, I did indicate to our viewers that this is a special edition. We want to look in depth at what is happening in the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. And we'll ask the operator to please take down the background music so that the viewers can hear us clearly. So we want to look in depth in terms of what is happening in the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. And of course, the just recent continuous chaos and confusion that occasions that ministry. You were a staff in the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, so you have an opportunity to provide us with information, in-depth information in terms of what is happening there. And of course, Randy served under the former Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Nicholas Henry. And of course, he too will be able to bring some insights. And of course, yours truly, former Director of Sports within the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. Natasha, a quick overview of essentially remind our viewers of your role and responsibility within the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport during that period, and then we'll come into what is transpiring in that ministry now. Natasha?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Good night again to our viewers. So for most of you who know that under the APNU AFC government, we had a department called Social Cohesion that was responsible for educating and bringing our people together. We believe that harmonizing our policies and ensure that Guyanese live in unity was one of the fundamental pillars to the APNU AFC government. And so what happened, that social cohesion was the vehicle for culture, youth, and sport to promote unity. And we had a comprehensive program. In fact, there was a strategic plan developed with the support from the United Nations Development Fund. And so what we did was use culture, youth, and sport as the mechanism to initiate social cohesion programs in all 10 administrative regions. Now, in that case, we would have had all of the programs on the sports, culture, and youth harmonized in such a way that we roll out one extensive social cohesion program. When we realize that with Guyana being a multi-ethnic, multicultural society, we will have differences. And we understand by now that our differences are our strength. what we saw happen after August 2020, when the PPP government fraudulently took office. 4 days after they took office, we saw Charles Ramson Jr. dismantling the entire Department of Social Cohesion. In so doing, they knock off, if they fired a large number of staff from that department. And so what you have now, Chris, is disharmony, chaos, as you would call it, in that ministry led by Charles Ramson. And all of the actions from August 2020 to now, as recent as this afternoon, I can tell you, Chris, that after you would have sent out your notice for today's podcast, the staff, the former staff, the staff who were fired, they started reaching out to me and telling me of the story of how badly they were treated by Charles Ramson as the minister, and no support from the permanent secretary. So they had no choice but to leave. I have information, and we'll go on to talk about it. But let me tell you how demoralized the staff at Culture, Youth and Sport is. Charles Ramson, as a minister, would have staff meeting. And you know what he does? Staff meeting in the hot sun in the yard. 3 weeks ago, one of our colleagues, I can't call her name up on air, but she fell down. She collapsed in the hot sun. A colleague that we worked with for years, because Charles chose to have stand-up meeting in the hot sun in the yard. That is how he treats the staff. We will talk about the programs as we go on later on, Chris. But as it is now, it's really, really bad at Culture, Youth and Sport. I am amazed that nobody has gathered the strength in that ministry to call for his resignation at this point in time.
Excellent. All right. Viewers, we've just been joined by Randolph Critchlow. Randolph Critchlow had a special assignment under former Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Nicolette Henry. Randy, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good night. Good night. Good night, everyone. Good night, Natasha. Good night, Chris.
Good night.
All right. So we know you're a person who accustomed to always have something to unpack. We've just asked Natasha to share with us an overview of her role and responsibility when she worked in the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. So essentially, we'll ask you now to do same, and then we'll get into the program content proper.
Well, you were the director of sport when I was there. I was tasked with looking over the ground enhancement project. That was 2017. And 2017 into 2018, I worked with Minister Nicolette, and basically look over the ground enhancement project, which saw us putting funds into upgrading community grounds around the country. We know that this was a project that existed before, and we continued with that. And basically, around the country, of course, I don't know what is happening with the ground enhancement project right now, but when I was there, we were working with community members in giving out small contracts in our communities to improve the state of our community grounds. One of the major things that I still think needs to be done, and I will continue to harp on this, that we need to make strides to ensure that our school grounds are also kept in the same shape. And there's I repeat this thing that I've been repeating now for about 5 years. There seems to be a gray area between the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, and the Ministry of Communities. Well, communities where there is regional development. Now, in terms of who takes care of these school grounds, and a lot of times the schools are there and the grounds are there and they're unkept, because when you hear from the Ministry of Education, they only weed the schools about 2 or 3 times a year or whatever. And there's this gray area, and I believe that more needs to be done in terms of ensuring that our school children have a proper playing area. And so that was my responsibility. I was tasked with managing the ground enhancement project. Mm-hmm.
All right. So Randy and Natasha. So juxtapose all of that now to 2025 and the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. We note that some of the horror stories that have been reported from various former and current staff members there at the ministry. But we want to get an idea now as to the minister and administering the responsibility of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. We note that Natasha mentioned earlier when there are these general meetings of the staff, that these meetings are essentially held in the yard, in the hot sun. Um, it's essentially a new style or a different approach by the subject minister with that responsibility. Do you think that that goes well in terms of promoting a conducive work environment for the staff that are there? Brandy?
I heard of this from MP Natasha. I didn't get any reports of it, and I found it very strange.
Yeah.
Let me say this here. Let me say this. You know, when I heard it, I tried to give Charles some credit to say maybe if you're in the hot sun, you don't want to for the meeting to last too long, and so I wanted to give him some credit, but hearing the reports coming out from those persons in there about actually having to stand in the hot sun, how inconvenient it was, kind of take away all the little credit that you wanted to give, because if you're going to hold a meeting in the hot sun, is going to last just the same time if we sit down inside, then why are we out here, you know? But I want to say that we've seen this minister and his actions ever since he was posted there. Nothing but strange, and we can go through all of the things tonight that I can point to that is mind-boggling, right? From simple decisions in terms of holding meeting in the hot sun to big things like doing away with the CXC night classes, like doing away with the National Drama Festival, like having your family and friends in key positions and making a mess of what's happening, to chastising persons and threatening persons who may have commented on your actions on Facebook, all manner of things. It's nothing but strange. And of course, we saw what happened with the director of the Baroque School of Art, and the list continues. So I don't think that anything surprises me at this point in time. If you can tell me now, right now, that Charles Ramson say that all workers should come, all the staff should come to work in short pants, I would believe you, because he has implemented one strange thing after the other, and to the detriment of the Ministry of Culture and Sports and those vital programs that they should be running there. And we're going to talk about those programs in just a bit, because we've been getting the files, we've been getting the information about what has been happening, and especially the Ministry of the Department of Youth.
Yeah, exactly. But Randy, I want to take you back to Grong Enhancement, because indeed,
yes,
Grong Enhancement was a program that continued under the coalition, started under former Minister Dr. Frank Anthony, but it was essentially expanded, because what used to obtain then is that community grounds were just given $1 million to do their own enhancement. And of course, when I became a member of parliament in the 10th parliament back in 2011, I started to expose the folly behind that, because I went to several grounds across the country from regions 2 all the way to region 6. And many of the allocations that were made to those particular grounds, where you get on the ground, there's nothing to show of any work that being done. And of course, yourself and I, we essentially expanded that program, in which we increased that amount from $1 million upwards to $10 million. And then we brought into being what we call the Light Them Up campaign. Because for the first time in Guyana, under the AP and UAFC stewardship, My apologies. Community grounds across the country started community lights and several grounds, whether it's Rosignol, whether it's over in Region 6 and so forth, numerous grounds. But what we see is happening now is that when Charles Ramsden came into to office, he made a lot of pronouncements. He went on several grounds and talked about giving $10 million for this ground and so forth. But right now, the very grounds that were named as far back as 2020, 2021, that they will be getting $5 million, $10 million, and so forth. Case in point, the ground that is located in my community, Tocqueville, or Telecoms ground. To date, the ground is unplayable. The lights
You're
are up.
talking about Conqueror's ground?
Exactly, exactly. And many grounds across, I could tell you some grounds on the east coast of Demerara, for example. So the question is being asked, where are these hundreds of millions of dollars that have been allocated to this ministry for ground enhancement? And you have grounds that has lights up, but they have no fence, they have no bleachers, they have no washroom facilities, and the ground of itself is not playable.
Yeah, yeah. And and and
And I
and,
know,
and this is,
go ahead.
yeah, I say this because I remember distinctly seeing Charles Ramsden on that Conqueror's ground in Tocqueville there, making a big hoopla about what they're going to do. Promises. A big hoopla. 4 years later, the ground is in the same space. And this is what I want people to realize. I want people to see. In the mold of this PPP government, they like to whitewash things and make
Yeah.
a big parade, a big show of something, of a promise, right? Like the big show that they made of the National Youth Council that is still born. Nothing has come of it, right? Millions of dollars allocated to it and a big show. And so, from the $4.6 billion in 2024, we don't know what has happened. There are some big projects that were basically brought forward from the APNU AFC. We know that the synthetic tracks around the country in Linden and a number of other big projects. But are you saying to us that is where the money is going? All the money is going towards these few key big projects? The communities are suffering. The communities are crying out that, hey, we don't have place to play. We don't have recreational spaces. And like Chris said, it made a lot of sense what we implemented. Say, hey, instead of giving $1 million to this ground, and then, of course, the $1 million can only grade the ground, let's say. And then you're still left with no lights, no fence, no seating area, no washroom. We are looking to ensure that grounds you are able to come to a facility in your community and ensure that, look, if I come here, if I send my children here, there's a washroom facility, there are lights, there are fences, seating area. On that note, Chris, I just want to push this in. I remember when in 2020, when the PPP, they were installed, and they made a whole heap of noise about the Durban Park, right? Whole heap of noise about the Durban Park. I remember publicly saying that, hey, if you are so, gung-ho that this Durban Park is a waste of time, take those stands, those bleachers there, and give it to community grounds and build something better. If you are so up in arms about this thing not being up to standard, don't let it rot. Take those stands, disassemble them, give one to Conqueror's ground, go in West Roundville, give one over here. Those community grounds that don't have any seating capacity, give them to them, and even if you have to leave the area bare because you're so angry at Durban Park. But no, this government decided that they would leave it rot instead of giving it to the communities. So when you drive around those communities right now and you see them with no seating, the children there sitting on the ground, note that these same stands at Durban Park, it was suggested, here what? You said it's temporary, it wasn't done right. Give it to the communities and build a better thing at Durban Park. No, the vindictiveness, the bad-mindedness of the PPP left those things to rot. Now imagine how those would have come in good in those community grounds that don't have anything. I just wanted to put that in place because they knew that this was a suggestion. I
Yeah.
want to show people of Guyana the mentality of the PPP.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know that is and you made the point, and that's what we were saying. Because, for example, when we became staffers at the Ministry of Culture and Sport, and Growing
Yeah.
Enhancement, which is a program initiated under Dr. Frank Anthony's stewardship. We didn't
Yes.
discard that. We continue that program. And that is what is expected of governments coming into office, is that there is a project that was started by one, you either upgrade it and move it to another point. But in this case, and you would think that the monies that were spent on Durban Park is AP and UAFC money. So therefore, by not doing any rehabilitation work there, you're doing something bad to the AP and UAFC. It is taxpayers' money, and
It's the
one would
people's
recall,
money you're
and no
wasting.
matter.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Randy.
No, I was saying it's the people's money wasting here.
Exactly, exactly. And one would have expected that as a government, you would, because no one, no matter what the PPP does, they cannot erase the history. Because right there at Durban Park, we had some historical events that were hosted there, in which, for the first time outside of the Providence Stadium, you had thousands of Guyanese of all walks of life were able to gather in a space in central Georgetown. We had one of the best parking facilities that vehicles were able to park just beyond Durban Park and including the Square of the Revolution, which did not impede the smooth flow of traffic.
Perfect.
You had
Yeah.
flag raising events, independence and so forth, of which we saw the largest flag being hoisted. And even now, just recapping when that flag was being hoisted, I'm getting goosebumps. And every time I recall driving past Durban Park and that huge flag is up there, you feel something, you feel a sense of pride and so forth. Look at the major events. Now here it is that Ramson they turn up at Parliament and speak about the condition of Durban Park. You are the government. That is now your responsibility. You know what should the AP?
Point, Chris. I want people to understand that the PPP wants us to believe that they took over Durham Park as is.
That's right. That's
Right?
what they're trying to do.
You left
That is
it
the
like
impression they're trying to
it
give
to become
people.
like that.
Exactly. Exactly. And people will never forget them for that. So is it a case that when the APNU, for example, came into office, the Providence Stadium that was built
Like
under the
them.
PPP government, we
We
should have
should have left
what?
it.
We should have left it, let grass overgrown, and then speak about, oh, look, this millions of dollars they spent on this stadium, and it's not the right stadium. And I don't understand. And you said it again. It underscores the wicked, vindictive, bad-minded way of Charles Ramson Jr., who has that responsibility for the Ministry of Culture and Sport, of which Durban Park comes under that ministry. Because under the ministry, we used to maintain Durban Park because it falls under the ministry. We spoke about enhancing that space in which when you have, for example, the because the artificial turf was supposed to be laid there, and which would have accommodated the children's school national events being hosted, as opposed the challenge that they have, the schools have, to transport students all the way over to Region 3 via the bridge and so forth to use that space there. Natasha, what is your take on
Chris.
this?
Yeah,
Chris,
think of I'm going to come back after Natasha.
Okay, go ahead.
Chris, I want us to look at, you asked about what's happening now. And I want us to put that whole conversation into context. There's a new phenomenon in the PPP where they now care about young people, right? And we don't see the facility at Durham Park as a facility that young people in Georgetown itself every single day could benefit from. So they would have left it to deteriorate to the state it's in now. But let me speak a little bit about young people, because you and I and Randy, we were part of that ministry, and we know what took place then under the David Granger administration. And we are going to let the viewers know what is happening now. This new phenomenon about the PPP liking young people and wanting to give them an opportunity and all of that is nothing more than a farce, because the ministry that has responsibility for youth, Randy will speak about the Youth Council. I know he has some information, but let me tell you about the Department of Youth. In 2020, when Charles Ramson took office, the Vrijmensarving Training Center in New Amsterdam was closed. When he came into office, he closed the Kurukuru Training Center. Now, you know who are the people that benefited from those centers? If you know New Amsterdam, and I want to speak about this because I have responsibilities in Region 6 as a member of Parliament. And when I go to the region, I find out what's happening with young people, with women, with children, and so on. You want to know where they are at this time. The Vrijmensarving Training Center that fell under the Department of Youth was closed. It catered for the young people in New Amsterdam, particularly the area Anguys Avenue and Smithfield. And I don't want to tell you, the police will give you more information about the young people in that area because they frequent that area. It's something that boggles my mind. How can you close a center that is so beneficial to the people of this country? Kurukuru Training Center did not only cater for people on the coastline, it was a dorm institution where we had indigenous children coming out from the hinterland area, stayed at Kurukuru, stayed there for their entire training period. When they left the center and they went back to their community, they were qualified, they were prepared to go and look for work in their community. They were tradesmen and women. That entire center is now closed. And you would want to know, after 4 years, if Charles Ramson didn't understand what's going on. What is he doing with the young people of this country? But there is more that I believe an audit needs to be done at the Department of Youth, because I am told that even though those centers are closed, I am told that monies are procured to buy equipment for children when they graduate. And you don't see one student graduate. We now know that the centers were closed since 2020. And we are told now that large sums of money, I was told this afternoon, $191 million was allocated to buy tools and so on for students. But Chris, there aren't any students at Vrijmensarving Center. The center was closed since 2020. There aren't any students at Kurukuru. It was closed. Where is the money?
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
I was told that the center in Sophia is now temporarily on hold. You know why? Charles Ramson thought it was best to run the TVET program in these centers. These centers, they attract, because of where they attract children or young adults, I would say, who are not at CXC level. So you have to do remedial work with them, bring them up, and then put them through the program. Randy told you earlier that he closed the night school in Sophia. Now you have students graduating in 2023 to 2024. I think 3 batch of students graduated under Charles Ramson. Not one of them walked away with a certificate. You know why? The TVET Council said when they sent in their verifiers, and TVET is a quality assured institution. So if you get a certificate from TVET, you know that it's valid. TVET verifiers went into Sophia, examined the children, looked at what has happened, and they said that the students are not up to standard, so they cannot issue the certificate. So you have 3 batches of students went into the institution, came out of the institution, and is not certified. All of that is happening under Charles Ramson, and PPP want to tell us that they love the young people of this country. but it's only the friends, family, and favorites, young people, that they really love. I believe that an audit in the youth department needs to be conducted.
You
Excellent,
want
Randy.
problem?
You support. I know you would. I know you would. And you wanted. You had a closing point on Durban Park when we went into Natasha as well.
Oh,
So
but don't just for us to stay on track because Natasha
yeah,
took us in a different direction. I want to come back to we'll come back to sport, Chris. Let's
sure,
since we're here,
sure.
right? Natasha is calling for audit of the youth department. I don't think that's problems. That's a hornet's nest, right?
Mhm.
Natasha and she said something just now that we got word of that the minister and they were forcing essentially the
Yeah,
staff to finish a TVET program in 4 months so that they can make graduation. Right? They were saying to the people, look, this is a year-long program, but they wanted them to finish it in 4 months. Right? And there's some other cases. And so rightfully the TVET people came in and said the children are not able because it's a competency-based program.
correct.
You can only move on if you're competent, right?
Right.
And so you move at your own pace.
Mhm.
So that is how it was designed. And so Charles and I don't know who else around him wanted to ensure that they got numbers. So he could come to
Yeah,
parliament and quote, oh,
numbers.
500 people graduated, 200
Mhm.
people graduated,
Mhm.
essentially forcing the people to complete the program in a shorter time. And of course, if the students are not competent, how can they be certified?
Yeah,
And so I just wanted to add that there, that is part of the problem. We have a minister who is more concerned with quoting numbers in parliament and
yeah,
actually ensuring that the students have the competencies that they need to properly graduate from the program.
yeah. No, but essentially, listen. You know when you talk about a square peg in a wrong hole, somebody who is not fitted. Those are some of the words that people use many times to describe Charles Ramson Jr. And more particularly, um,
Yeah.
they speak about his arrogance,
Yeah.
his pompous behavior, and the list goes on. And the list goes on.
Charles is not a square peg in a round hole. I would beg to disagree. He's not a square peg in a round hole. Eventually, a square peg with enough probing and prodding would fit into
But
that round hole.
yeah.
Charles is a square peg in a square peg.
Mercy. All right. So, guys, I want
It's
to.
a square peg in a square peg.
There you go. I want to move us now to, I mean, essentially, as Natasha called, and I think no one would disagree, to a complete forensic audit into the finances of the Ministry of Culture, Youth, and Sport. Um, there are lots of sports associations, um, individual athletes who would have reached out to me indicating the mammoth task that they have trying to get financial assistance from not only the ministry but also the National Sports Commission. And of course, they make reference and not want to use this line to project myself or give that impression that while I was there, it was better, whatever the case be. But people in those associations and those federations, they juxtapose what transpired under the APNU AFC's administration in terms of them accessing funding from the ministry and the National Sports Commission to go about doing whether it's international travel and so forth. There are several programs within the National Sports Commission that are no longer there. Um, the differently able, for example, the National Sports Commission took full responsibility of those activities to ensure that the differently able students from various schools, whether it's in Linden, Berbice, are able to come together. They participated in all of the sports discipline, like the other students and so forth, providing funding for them to travel abroad to participate, whether it's in Bachi. I made mention in the parliament, for example, it was under the AP and UAFC administration that the differently able groups in sport were given international recognition. We sent a team to participate in the differently able sports as far as Dubai, and the list goes on. So where is where the money going? Because obviously the persons who supposed to be in receipt of them are not receiving them.
Yeah.
The minister.
Chris. Yeah.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I wanted to jump in here with some information.
Yes.
You're talking about where the money is going.
Yeah.
For example, and Natasha is right, and all that needs to be done in the Department of Youth. Some of the information that in share. For example, there are reports that only about 20 students are in that the Sapphire Training Center for D.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you what happened. Charles and the ministry, they fired the staff. They fired most of the staff, right? They ended the hot meals program, right? They ended the hot meals program and sent home the staff. And what they do now is they buy about 100 boxes of food for those 20 children. There are children going home with 2 and 3 boxes of food, which might be a good thing for the couple of children. But
Yes.
you see where the corruption is.
Exactly.
Right?
And who's preparing the meals?
Right. The cook that they had there got nothing to do. The cook is sitting down.
Yeah.
Right? Because they have now upended the system that was there, where they had the canteen and they had the kitchen and cook for the children there. And they figure out some sort of way where somebody can make money by buying 100 boxes of food a day from somewhere. Someone, gotta be some friend or family they're buying this food from. To give these 20 children. This is where we are, right? And all of this is happening under the minister's nose.
Mm-hmm. Is either under his nose or right in front of his eyes.
Right. And so that's where the money is going, Chris. Mm-hmm. That money is going to these sort of crazy things that he is doing in the ministry.
Yeah.
Right? And since we're here, I know you said something just now that I wanted to follow up on. I mean, forgive us because we may be jumping from youth to sport. Yeah. We're in the same ministry. But when you said that the PPP's action in leaving Durban Park to rot, if it is that when the APN UFC came in and we had problems with the National Stadium, people who are outside of sports don't understand that the cry of those sports people, when the National Stadium was built without the ability to facilitate a 400 track, for example, the athletics community was crying out, why are you building a stadium that only cricket can play at?
Yeah.
Right? And so the space was there for you to build a proper 400 track. So we could have said when we came in, look, let's abandon that national stadium because it's basically a one sport facility. You could play cricket and you could hold concerts. Let us build a better facility somewhere where we can facilitate all the various sports. At that national stadium, and nationals with the National Track and Field Athletics Championship was held there once. You cannot fit a 400 track there.
Yeah. And
so again, lack of foresight. That's the doing of the PPP government, right? And they take the one synthetic track that we had at that point in time and throw it till over. So because apparently there's where Irfan from and the PYO group over the river in Lenora. So we got to put it there. So all of our athletes got a track from Georgetown here where the majority of them are, right? And go over. So I mean, just those simple things. The fact that you would leave the Durban Park there, even though you had some problem with, there's nothing wrong with continuing. You had all sorts of things to say about it. Well, fix it up now. Yeah, say to us, look, this is how you do the thing properly. And so we can go on and on, Chris. We can go on and on about the ineptitude and the incompetence of and the pomposity of a Charles Ramson. Pompous in his ineptitude and incompetence. That's the strange thing about it. That you are doing a wash of foolishness, but you're pompous about it, which is a strange sort of place to be. But yeah, I just wanted to put that in.
Chris, as we are talking about buildings and the way they would have neglected the initiatives of the coalition government, do you remember the building at Denamstel and what was the purpose of it?
Yeah.
Do you remember the one at Caldigen
Yeah.
and what was the purpose of it? All of that. And I want our viewers to understand that the same youth department is now, since 2020, headed by Suresh Singh. And Suresh Singh was recently sworn in as a member of parliament. And to know that all of this is happening under his watch or by his actions, because I was made to understand that Charles Ramsden can't tell Suresh Singh how to run or how to manage the Department of Youth. All of this is happening by an elected official now, as we see. So I want the general public, I'm making that call again, for a forensic audit to be done. I am told that the tools that are being purchased for the students who don't exist in 2 or 3 institutions closed is purchased cash. And so the Department of Youth don't go to tender board for these kinds of monies, for these kinds of projects. They purchase these equipment, spades, and all these things for the students. They give them when they graduate, even though they can't be certified. They give them things to start off their business. It's purchased cash under Suresh Singh, who is now a member of parliament and serves as the
Sasha,
director
yeah,
of
sure.
youth.
Yes,
Yes, Randy.
sure. So we need to answer.
Go ahead, Randy.
The Department of Youth needs to answer why these schools are all being bought at a particular place on the East Coast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? Why is it that if the Department of Youth needs bread, if the Department of Youth needs a particular place on the East Coast, let the new member of parliament, Suresh Singh, answer why these things got to be bought by from this particular store on the East Coast.
Well, key questions. I want to, in 12 minutes to, I want to, in 12 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour, take us down exclusively this road in terms of the management and administration of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. And the public in general is still trying to get information as to who is really in charge or responsible for certain areas. For example, there was the incident involving Mr. Tom over at the National Park entrance there, involving to date an unknown individual who made racial remarks at him, which prompted him to resign with immediate effect. And of course, I think after an intervention by the administration, he rescinded that resignation. We're learning now that the dance company, note that within the ministry there are 2 groups or 2 settings. There is the National Dance School and there is the National Dance Company. And we're learning that for the past 6 months thus far, the National Dance Company has been suspended from any activities being hosted by the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. There's also an Amerindian group, which comprised of 5 young ladies, can't recall the village that they're from, but this particular group participated in an event that was hosted in Dubai, of which I'm learning that the president considers these young ladies some of the best dancers that he's seen. And we're made to understand that this particular dance group, like the National Dance Company, well, in their case, they have decided not to participate in any event being hosted by the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, all owing to an individual who, best to our knowledge, may not necessarily be a full-time staff of the ministry, and it is alleged that this person happens to be the wife of the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport. So I want us now to have that discussion. Who is this young lady? And I should include that the challenges that the National Dance Company, as well as this particular Africa Amerindian dance group, amongst a lot of other artists, whether in culture and so forth, they have serious issue with this young lady who it is alleged it is the wife of Minister Charles Ramson, who is doing work at the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, and apparently she considers herself Mistress Minister, that her arrogance seems to outshine that of Charles Ramson. Her pompousness seems to outshine Charles Ramson. That as a result of this behavior from this individual, the National Dance Company, refusing to take to the stage, have since been suspended now for 6 months, and as well this Amerindian group, in protest, they have decided that they will not participate in event of the ministry. What is the information and indication that you have? And then we'll go out the line of what we have, because we speak of nepotism and all of that. But if this case is correct, in which it is alleged that this person is the wife of the minister and she's working at the very same ministry, and apparently her ratchet behavior towards performing arts people have prompted them to take protest action and not participate in any event of the ministry, and it has resulted in the National Dance Company being suspended.
Wow.
Tash, you going?
No, take it,
Anybody
Randy.
could go, because he said it is the crux of the matter. The issue that we have in this particular ministry is essentially it is a family thing. You know, this is not a ministry of the government of Ghana. This is the Minister Charles Ramson's family legacy, in which wife, daughter, and all of the everybody associated with the minister has control of the ministry, that they can walk in, abuse verbally anybody at any time, like Mr. Tom, in which the racial slurs were thrown at him, and the list goes on. This is what's happening. Go ahead.
Chris, the last time I spoke about this particular issue, I got thrown out of a whole play. Such is the pettiness of Ramson.
That is the vindictiveness here.
Yes. I pointed out this thing. I asked questions a while back about the role this person is playing.
Yeah.
Artists would have complained when they were auditioning to go to the last Carrie Festa that they had to audition in front of this person. Whoever the person is alleged that this is the minister's wife, that they had to audition in front of this person. Many artists found it very distasteful that they had to be subjected to that. When I questioned that about the role of this person, a few months later, I was in a play, and the director was being pressured to move me out of the play because, of course, the play was being funded by the ministry. Yeah. Now, like you said, Chris, we don't know what role this person plays. I used to call her the director of culture. Although there is a substantive director of culture there, I don't know what role she's really playing. And so this is just a part of the problem that is Ramson and his cohorts. Now, let me say this. I cannot point to one significant project or anything that I've seen in culture. I mean, we talk about sports, we talk about youth. The monies that were allocated to culture, where is it going? What is it doing? I can't tell you. Let me give you a typical example of, again, Ramson and these strange decisions that he seems to be making. He comes to open the thing and fix a lot of things that were not broken. He decided that he wants to fix. The National Drama Festival, for example. No more. There's no National Drama Festival. He said, you know what? we're going to do 4 award-winning plays a year.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the end of that. Mm-hmm.
And so, and he cited, oh, it's too expensive. The National Drama Festival cost $7 million to run. And what they did is open up the doors for everybody from all walks of Guyana to be a part of a drama competition and get their feet wet in theater.
Yeah.
If you're doing, and last year they said they're doing four award-winning plays. One, I think they did. One. That was the one that I was in that Ramson said I shouldn't be in, apparently. So
yeah, because you spoke out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you do one play a year, instead of a National Drama Festival that saw hundreds of people getting a chance to be a part of theater, hundreds. The 1 or 2 plays a year, you're getting some of the seasoned actors to go on stage, and that's it. You have not. You have basically done everything to contract the growth of theater in Guyana. So National Drama Festival do away with. We don't know whether or not it's coming back. We don't see any improvements in the infrastructure in terms of culture. Right? Where is the new cultural center in Berbice or Essequibo or Linden? The new dance studio we putting up somewhere. In the last 4 years, now they're telling us that they're going to do some recording studios. No, after 4 years.
The recording studio's been on the books, I think, now for 3 years. And just last month in the Parliament, when the Shadow Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports, Nima Flew Best, tried to ascertain the address of this alleged studio that is being set up in Region 10, the minister could not provide the answer. So today, millions of taxpayers' money, it is alleged, is being spent on some studio in Linden, in which nobody know where the studio is. But quickly, because I'm watching the time, I want to bring you back to what you said in terms of this person. And listen, it is for the minister and the ministry to answer whether it is true or not.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't just border it as this person. It is alleged that Charles Ramson's junior wife has a role in the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. And from the persons that I've been speaking with leading into the budget, who've been sharing information with me as it relates to how this person operated in the ministry, is that her pompous and repugnant behavior is worse than that of Charles Ramson. And as I did mention, there is the National Dance Company that is alleged has been suspended by this individual because the girls are in protest against her behavior. Now, you said it's adding to the chaos and confusion in the ministry and whether or not this person has that role in terms of culture. And what is the role exactly there for the director of culture? Because we saw over this weekend, Charles Ramson happily took the opportunity to fling the actual director of culture under the bus, alleging that her office was responsible for issuing invitations and so forth. Now, that in itself is so low. Because I recall me as director of sports when I had the folly of not going and greet our cricketers at the airport, and I came in for some flanks and lashes and so forth. I couldn't have said to John Public that my secretary did not remind me or my assistant didn't give me the information. The buck stops with me. It is my responsibility. And I accepted that responsibility, issued an apology. And from that day going forward, I corrected it. We've been through this for the past 4 or 5 years, whether it's Republic, whether it's independence, and several other activities. It is only when an MP takes to social media in protests that this activity is coming up tomorrow or the next day, we haven't received invitation, and you see a flurry of activity and so forth. This complaint is not the first time for Charles Ramson, but I want to try to figure out if by chance or if it is the case as a result of this that is alleged that Charles Ramson's wife is working at the ministry or has some role at the ministry, in the department or area of culture, it is what is leading to the chaos and confusion that we're having.
So, Chris, what I learned this afternoon is one of the older staff called me and said, Miss Natasha, I hope y'all ain't thinking that Tamika do the thing, because the director of culture really don't function. It is the lady that comes in there and she called the name that undermines the functions of the director of culture. So I had to let her know that both myself and Chris and Randy, we worked in that ministry and we know the protocol that the director has to prepare the list of invitations and send it to the minister, and then the minister asks who his special invitees would be to the list, and then the list goes out. But
That's
if
right.
that certain person comes in and is undermining the director of culture, there ought to be chaos there. And like you rightfully said, Charles Ramson Jr. has to take the lashes for it.
That's
But
right.
it is, Chris, it is not today, it is not February, our Republic anniversary. You remember when they had their celebrations in Region 9, they sent invitation to the opposition members of parliament the day before, and you have
Correct.
to have flights and accommodation and all. They really don't want, and I saw them talking about inclusive governance, and the opposition is making a mountain out of a molehill and so on. It is these things that indicates whether they truly want the opposition to participate in national
Yeah.
events.
Yeah. No, and what it reminds all is that, as I mentioned in my piece when I put up on social media the night before, or the very night itself, is that had this been an aggression by Nicolas Maduro and Venezuela, and they would have organized all of these major events, and they would have been out there on DPI and NCN. Oh, this is where the opposition and government should come together and stand. The opposition has always and will continue to stand firm with the administration as it relates to defending Guyana's sovereignty and territorial integrity. But you cannot treat people, a branch of government, a people a part of a branch of government, as if they are convenient, useful
Yeah.
utensils. And that is what continues to happen with this administration. Randy, we
Yeah.
have, well, we are out pro on time, but I
Closing.
want to get a wrap up from you. In fact,
Yeah.
let me start with Natasha first, a quick wrap up from you, and then I'll go to Randy. Natasha, your closing remarks.
Chris, like you started off the program by saying what is going on at the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport is in utter chaos. I would say that Charles Ramson is out of his league, even in a ministry that anybody that has an understanding of how our culture and have, I don't know. It's just simple. You must have the people at heart. The
Yeah.
young people that Charles Ramson would gallivant about the place to tell people that he has the interests of young people at heart. It is not so difficult to represent them and to make, resources available to develop them. It is not a difficult task. And something as simple as that, he has no ability. And so what you find is corruption in that ministry. And in closing, I'd like to call again for a forensic audit to be done, and as you said, across the ministry. But I would like to see first and foremost that the Department of Youth, because the youth population of this country is tremendous, and they are affected in a very negative way. They may not know the resources available to them because Charles will make it known and available to them. And so I would like to see that audit come off as early as this first quarter.
Correct. Thank you very much, Natasha. Randy? Randy?
Hi. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
quick thing, Chris. Again, thank you very much for your invite. And I want to wrap up on this note. I know a lot of times people accuse the opposition of not putting forward suggestions.
Yes.
And we always criticize it. So I want to leave, because I know Charles and his people will be looking at the program.
Yes.
I want to leave a few nuggets with them, and hopefully in the next few months, as they start a campaign, you will hear them say these same things that we're suggesting now. And I'll go sport, youth, and culture. What I would like to see is that Charles work with, for example, the Ministry of Education to get more of our school grounds in line. I would like to see you establish, like we were about to do before the no confidence motion, establish an MOU with the ministry, not the ministry, with the University of Guyana, to make the University of Guyana the center of sport and sport research and development in the country. Right? Let's put a synthetic track at UG and let the University of Guyana be the center of sport development in our country.
Yeah.
In youth, I would support the call by MP Natasha Singh for proper audit of the Department of Youth. And you probably need to move that director of youth that you have there that is causing you so much stress. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, know that you know what so rich doing.
Yeah.
Right? You probably need to move him and reinstate the night schools that were benefiting our young people.
Yeah.
And so take these suggestions, take them and run with them election time. And then we'll tell you, look, we said it way back when. The final thing in terms of sport, in terms of culture. Now, it would be remiss of me not to mention culture because that's my baby. I have to advocate for artists, or thespians, all the people in the cultural landscape. What I would like to see, Charles, is that you grow up here and do something significant in culture, right? Establish some more creative spaces in the regions. The National Culture Center shouldn't be the only 2,000 seat place that we can have events. Dance studios, recording studios. You want to see those things in various regions. Do something with the money that this oil money. And finally, bring back the National Drama Festival and give people a chance. Bring back the National Drama Festival. And with those little nuggets, culture, youth, and sport, Charles, take people advice now. Take people advice. That's what we're saying this evening. And so you can't leave this program thinking, we just heard criticism. There are some things that they can do to better culture, youth, and sport as we move forward.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So it always happens, you get to the crux of the matter coming on to the tail end. So at some point in the near future, I'll have to invite, but I think I will have to do it separately, bring Randy on at one for an entire 1 hour and bring Natasha in for a complete another hour. Viewers, we were discussing the minister and the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, albeit not in depth. I want to echo the sentiments by Natasha Singh Lewis, a former staffer of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, as well as Randolph Critchlow, former staff of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, for there to be a forensic audit into the operations of the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. It is now up to the Minister, Charles Ramsden, and of course the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports to answer whether or not it is, as it is alleged, that the minister's wife works at the ministry in some role in the Department of Culture, and as such is adding chaos and confusion to what we saw on display a few days ago, in which the entire opposition, including the leader of the opposition, did not receive an invitation to a national event. My name is Christopher Jones. Thanking you very much for joining me on tonight's program of Whiplash. We look forward to seeing you again Thursday at 7 p.m. Until then, have a pleasant rest of your evening. Goodbye for now.